Hi everyone, I'm back for another episode of Let's Talk About It with Chelsea Thorpe, a junior volleyball player at UNC.
Hi guys.
So I want to start off with kind of your transition to UNC and kind of how you got there. I know you transferred to UNC. Was it going into your sophomore year?
Yeah, so I actually transferred last year going into my second semester of sophomore
Okay.
year. So like halfway through sophomore year in the spring. I transferred from Ohio State, but I didn't plan on transferring, so it was like really like quick spur of the moment. And
Wow.
then you just like get thrown right into it at UNC and like new team, new classes, new school. And it was a lot at first, so I guess we'll talk about that like with mental health.
Yeah, I feel like people really talk about the mental health impact of high school to college and then college to like graduating and being done, but not so much like transferring from one place to another. You almost have to start over.
Yeah, so the first week I got here, I remember like everybody I met was a new person, like new name. I didn't know anybody on my team. When I went on a visit, nobody was there from the team. I only met the coaches. Everything was just so new. And I just remember like feeling so much like anxiety and feeling so much like stress just because like I knew nothing. And like, thank God I had teammates that were like really there for me, but like I didn't really know them. So like I really had to like get into it really fast and just rely on them quickly. But mental health was it was hard at first, but I got used to it.
I felt like for most of the first semester, I only knew 20 people, and 18 of them were my teammates. I don't know if you could describe that feeling at all. What would you say?
Just like really lonely. Like you just don't know anybody and like you're still like trying to like create like lasting relationships. But like my mom always told me like first impressions are lasting impressions. So I
Yeah.
always try to like, well, like am I making a first impression? Like I want to have good friends. So
Yeah, it is. Like, yeah, it's like an unfortunate word. It's not like, yeah, that's
yeah.
great, but like it's a good way to describe it. How did you kind of get out of that? Like, how has that changed and what made it change?
Well, I actually got to talk to a sports psychologist, and that was really nice that we had that resource on our campus. And she was also Black, so it was like somebody like who looked like me, somebody I could relate to. She was an athlete in college, so that was really nice just to like have somebody to talk to.
Like, how long did you talk to her? And like, I don't know if you're willing to share any of those like activities or things that you did that you felt like helped during that time.
Yeah, I'd say we talked once a week for like an hour, maybe for a couple months, just like get the hang of things. And we talked a lot about like performance anxiety too, because like I was on a new team and like
Yeah.
experiencing that, but also just like how I'm doing personally.
Yeah, I can see that. Like create like finding a new role when you
Mhm.
enter a new team, figuring out how everyone operates, how you operate in a new environment can be really difficult. You have so much to be proud of now. You've kind of elevated into a leadership role at UNC. Like that's amazing. It's really, really rare for that to happen, especially with transfers. What has that experience been like? Like talk us through that.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I'd say like I'm kind of stepping into like my captain era right now, but
Yeah.
I feel like I've been a leader like on the team for a while now, especially like being a starter. Like you kind of just like have to, somebody has to have a voice on the team. So just like stepping into that, it's like it's nice because your teammates like really like rely on you, and
Mhm.
I just want to be like that person where I can serve them and also like perform and just be a good teammate to them.
Yeah, I was a captain of my Cornell team my senior year. I was one of a kind of a leadership team that we had. And I remember feeling so much pressure to do everything right.
Yeah.
Like the mistakes that I used to make in games were no longer acceptable in my opinion, right? Or like conversations that I had with my teammates like kind of changed because I was like, wait, I kind of have this leadership and all of that. How do you manage that? Have you felt any of that?
I think so for sure. Just like making sure like I have like everybody's back.
Hmm.
Like especially like with the relationship with your coaches. I feel like a lot of times, oh, like captains are you're just like the coach's pet, but like no, like I want to advocate for my teammates as well and
Yeah.
also like be a good player for my coaches. So just like bridging that gap.
Yeah. I feel like right now could be kind of a hard time for people who are experiencing that, who kind of like they know what we're saying, but they don't really know it in
Mhm.
action. Do you have any like stories or examples of how you've kind of had to manage that?
Yeah. Well, hmm. Oh, well, two of our coaches just left actually. Yeah. Darn. It was kind of like out of the one of them was out of the blue, and then we kind of knew like a month in advance for the other one, but they both left in like less than a week together. And like the team was like just feeling really like down, deflated, like what are we gonna do? We're lost. Like these were two like coaches who made a huge impact on our program. And I'm just like, guys, at the end of the day, like we're in that place because we put in the work and we were the ones who were performing on the courts. Like, don't let this discourage you. Like, we're gonna be fine. So just like continuing to instill confidence in our team, and also like trust that my coaches who are still there, like are gonna get somebody to replace those shoes. Yeah.
Yeah, those like little comments in the locker room, I feel like make the biggest deal. Like when as a captain, like that's kind of what your main
Mhm.
responsibility is. Like it's so interesting that you transferred, right?
Mhm.
And usually if you're like a transfer, you don't always have the best experience, right? It's like obviously you didn't have a 100% great experience at your last school or you would have
Right.
stayed. I would imagine that leaving your first school and like you said it was kind of like all of a sudden would cause like a lot of anxiety and different things like going into UNC and now you're like a leader. Like what was that process? Like what were you feeling?
Just like in continuing to remind myself that I am not just like the player who I am on that team. If I don't, that doesn't really make sense. I'm not just Chelsea like the Buckeye, or I'm not just Chelsea the Tar Heel. Like I'm Chelsea Thorpe, and like I have my own like type of play, like without like my school. So like just reminding myself to like stay confident in who I am, and like Ohio State did not make me, like UNC did not make me, like I'm Chelsea Thorpe, you know.
I love
But
that.
yeah, yeah, thanks. Just like reminding myself that I'm more than what people might think of me. Yeah, that
Yeah.
helped me become a better leader.
What do you wish more people knew about your experience at USC or in general?
Okay.
But
I think that I wish that more people knew all the work that goes into being a student athlete, because I feel like a lot of times like student athletes like get kind of like a bad rap, you know. Oh, they're just like athletes, you
yeah,
know. Like we put in a lot of work to like perfect our craft and just like be at this university. Like we're not here just because we're athletes. And then I guess like to younger girls, like continue to stay encouraged, because I feel like it's really hard to see like progress. Like okay, you did one day of working out, you know, you're not going to see it right away. But as somebody like who's been like working at this for over 10 years, like it'll pay off.
yeah, I agree with you. How do you track that progress, right? Like if you are someone that's a little type A and you
Hmm.
get a little like, hey, I need to know that that this is working. How do
Hmm.
you track your progress? What do you consider success?
Yeah, I'd say journaling. And if you don't like journal, like I would record like videos of myself and like
Yeah,
look back maybe like a year or two later and just be like, wow, I've come so far. And like sometimes I like laugh at the videos and stuff,
yeah,
but it's like a really good like measure to see like how far you've actually come.
yeah. I think that's great. Like you can also find patterns that way
Hmm.
too, almost like when you keep journaling or you keep watching back at those videos or tracking your emotions or whatever, you can kind of point out, hey, these are consistently coming up. Maybe I should talk to someone about these. It sounds like you have a really good team environment here.
Hmm.
Like not even just like oh you guys are lucky but that you really have worked to create that environment and to have that support. What does that look like day to day?
Well, we connect a lot with each other, and our coach will like tell us to connect with everybody. So we walk around and give high fives and we say each other's names. And
Yeah,
I think that's just really nice to do when, you know, sometimes it's just like you're checking in, like you're clocking in to go to practice and then leave. But like, no, like we're actually here to like build relationships with each other and like be there for each other and connect. So that's nice.
yeah, I feel like a lot of that goes into the recruiting process too.
Yeah, like our recruiting coordinator is really good at what she does, and just like making sure she recruits not just off of like, oh, like you're really good at volleyball, but
Right.
how are you like as a human? Like do
Hmm.
you have a good personality? Would you fit well in our culture? So I think that just shows like why we have like such a good team, because we do have good recruiting coordinators, but it's nice to play with people who aren't like, you know, stuck up.
No, I mean it makes a big difference. Like I think sometimes when I start having these like mental health conversations with athletes, especially on the podcast, sometimes you can tell that like so much of it could be resolved by a better team culture. That's why, although there are maybe negatives to the transfer portal, why it's so powerful and why it's so important that we have it and that it can help athletes, but also why it's so important that coaches and athletic directors and all of that are taking time to put those resources and those different things into their programs to make sure that, hey, beyond the specific personalities that work out on this team, do we actually have things in place to make sure that it's a good experience? I want to ask everyone in this series two questions. And the first is, what does wellness look like to you?
Hmm. Wellness looks like to me staying balanced spiritually, physically, and mentally. And I feel like that's just whenever like I'm balanced with those three, like I feel like I just feel good. I feel whole. Like when one's up, one's not, it's just I'm just a little off and like I can just feel that. But I even feel like I compete my best when those are balanced. But yeah, I feel like I'm my best person when I'm spiritually, physically, and mentally like at the same level.
I want to turn that into advice for our viewers. Let's say you're feeling really high volleyball wise, but really low maybe mentally, right? Or like, hey, like I just can't do it. What do you do
Mm-hmm.
to make it balance?
Like your mind is also a muscle. Like you have to make sure that like you're working that out too.
Yeah.
So like going to my sports psychologist, like we don't meet like now we don't meet like every week. Like now it's kind of like appointment by appointment, but like I know like if I need her, like I'm going to reach out. So like
Yeah.
it's like being proactive. Like don't wait till it gets to a point where you're like down this deep hole. Like be proactive about it.
I feel like people think that every time that they're struggling, you have to specifically talk to a sports
Mm-hmm.
psych or a therapist or whatever. Like that is true if you're struggling. You definitely should ask for help.
Please.
But you learn strategies and skills when you talk to those people, and those strategies and skills don't have to leave the second you
Right.
leave your office or you log off the Zoom. Like you can keep doing that throughout the week, even if you're not talking to them.
I agree. And
Yeah.
there's a ton of books also like out there that I like to read too. Like the Inner Game of Tennis is a
Oh,
good
okay.
book. I think it's called The Competing Mind. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
I will get back
Okay.
to you and maybe you can
Okay.
add that.
Yeah,
But
I'll
yeah,
make sure to add them. And then the last question: what makes playing in the ACC unique?
after playing in the Big Ten, which is also like a
Yeah,
really good conference, and then going to the ACC, I feel like everybody kind of has that underdog mentality because the Big Ten, like I want to play Big Ten volleyball. Like the Big Ten has been like the best conference for so long, but now like you have like these really good teams. I think we had the same amount of like
yeah,
uh, teams in the top 25 this year as the Big
yeah.
Ten, which is like crazy. And I think every night, no matter like who you're playing, like it's going to be a great game. That underdog mentality of just like we're gonna fight, we're gonna duke it out, So it's fun.
Do you have anything else, any advice, or any other things that you want to talk about before we end today?
Yeah, I just tell people to stay encouraged and just continue to have faith in yourself.
Chelsea, thanks so much for coming on the show today. I can't wait for everyone to see this.
Thank you, Sydney.
Hey guys, it's Sydney. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk About It, sponsored by The Zone, the wellness co-pilot for sports organizations. For more info on The Zone, check out itsthezone.com or It's The Zone on Instagram, and I'll see you guys next week.